Welcome, welcome to Mount Olympus, the only table in existence where the immortal and the mortal sit as equals. Well, near equals. Today we have a story of love so famous that even I, who invented most of the good ones, feel a little competitive. Music, marriage, and a trip to my brother's basement.
Basement. He means the realm of the dead, Hades' entire domain, which he just reduced to a cellar. Ignore him. He does this to everyone he's related to.
It's fine. He's been calling it the basement for 4,000 years. I've stopped correcting him. It only encourages him to think of new names.
I want it on record before we start that a great deal of this story happens near water. Rivers, riverbanks. The Styx, which I will remind everyone is technically a body of water and therefore adjacent to my authority.
Poseidon, the girl died in the grass. Let the poor thing get to the table before you start claiming her death as a maritime incident.
We have two guests today who have waited a very long time to speak for themselves. Perhaps we should let them come in before we argue about who owns the river.
Well said, Hestia, as always. Bring them in. First, a woman whose name became a byword for love lost too soon. Please welcome Eurydice.
Thank you. It's strange being announced. Down below, no one announces you. You simply arrive, and the quiet takes you in. I'd forgotten what it sounds like when a room turns to look at you.
Oh, come here. Sit, sit. You look cold, child. You have that pallor. I know that pallor. My daughter comes home wearing it half the year.
I've been told the pallor never quite leaves. Hades' realm marks you. It's not unkind, it's just permanent. Like a colour you were dyed in.
It's the light, or the lack of it. People assume it's despair. It's actually a vitamin deficiency. There's very little sun in eternity.
And our second guest, the one the poets never shut up about. The voice that supposedly made stones weep and my husband, briefly, insecure.
I was never insecure. I was appreciative. There is a difference. Bring him in. Orpheus, son of the Muse, the greatest musician who has ever lived.
You're kind, though I'd trade every string on this lyre and every song I ever wrote for one ordinary afternoon that didn't end the way mine did. But thank you. I'll take the seat. And Eurydice, hello. They don't often let us sit at the same table. I'm not sure where to look.
Anywhere but over your shoulder, apparently.
Oh, she came ready. Did everyone hear that? She's been holding that one for centuries.
She's been holding it for exactly as long as I've known her, which is a very long time. It doesn't get less sharp with age. I've watched.
That's fair. That's fair. I walked into that one. I suppose I should be used to walking into things I can't see coming.
Let's start at the beginning before the sorrow. There was a wedding. Tell us about the wedding, both of you. Start where you were happy.
We were happy. That's the part people skip, and it's the part I hold on to. It was a bright day in Thrace. I wore flowers in my hair, and Orpheus played, and the trees actually leaned in to listen. That's not a poet's exaggeration. I saw them move.
The whole meadow leaned in. Birds landed on the ground to hear better. I remember thinking, if I can make the world stop like this on an ordinary day, imagine what I could do on a day that truly mattered. I didn't know I'd find out.
That's a proper wedding, the land itself blessing it. I do the same at good harvests. The wheat bows. It means the earth approves. When the earth approves a marriage, you're supposed to be safe.
The earth approved. But Hymen, the wedding god, his torch smoked. It didn't burn clean. It guttered grey the whole ceremony and made everyone's eyes water. My mother said it was the wind. It wasn't the wind.
A guttering torch at a wedding. I tend flames for a living, and I can tell you, a flame that won't take is a flame that's grieving something it already knows. Fire is honest that way. It knew before you did.
I saw the smoke. I told myself a good song would clear it. I genuinely believed that if I just played beautifully enough, the omen would give up and go home. That was the first time my music failed me, and I didn't even notice.
Omens are tricky. I send a fair few of them myself. Eagles, thunderclaps, the odd flight of birds. Mortals never read them right. They always assume the omen is about somebody else's wedding.
Weddings are sacred to me, husband, so I'll speak on this. A smoking torch at the marriage rite is Hymen himself flinching. The god of the ceremony couldn't bear to look. That's not a small omen, that's the divine equivalent of a doctor going very quiet.
A doctor going very quiet, yes. That's exactly the feeling. Everyone smiling and no one meeting your eyes.
So the wedding ends, the torch is smoking, everyone's uneasy. And then what? Walk me through it. I like to know how disasters begin, professionally.
The dancing spilled out into the fields. That's how these things go. You can't keep a Thracian celebration indoors. I walked ahead into the long grass by the river. I wanted a moment of quiet, honestly. I'd never been the centre of anything before. And there was a man in the grass, Aristeas, a beekeeper, a demigod, who decided that day that he wanted me more than he respected my marriage. He came toward me. I ran. That's the part the poets leave out. I was running.
You were running from a man. Of course you were. They always leave that out. They make it sound like you tripped picking daisies. You were being chased.
I was being chased, and I didn't see the snake in the grass because I was watching the man behind me. It struck my ankle. I felt the whole world tilt. I remember thinking of all the things to be afraid of. I was afraid of the wrong one.
And I wasn't there. I have to say this out loud because I've never gotten to. On the happiest day of my life, at the moment she needed someone to see, I was somewhere else, playing music to people who were already smiling.
For what it's worth, and it may be worth nothing, there was nothing you could have done. Viper venom in a mortal ankle. I've received thousands who died faster than a strong man can run a field. You'd have arrived to hold her, not to save her.
You think that helps? It doesn't. To hold her would have been everything. I'd have given the rest of my life to have been the last thing she saw instead of tall grass and a stranger.
It was grass and sky, if it matters, not the stranger. He ran when he saw me fall. Cowards always do. The last thing I saw before the dark was a very ordinary blue sky, and I thought, that's a shame. I liked that sky.
I liked that sky. There's more grief in that little sentence than in all the wailing songs written about you. The small things are what we mourn, not the sky itself, the liking of it.
This is why I keep her at this table. Hestia says 4 words, and I feel things. Do you know how rare it is for me to feel things about other people's problems?
Vanishingly rare. I've kept records. We could publish them.
So she goes down. To your place, Hades. Walk us through the arrival. What's it like? Because I've heard rumors and I want them confirmed or denied on the record.
It's quiet. That's what surprises everyone. They expect screaming. It's a river, a boatman, a fee, and then a long grey shore where you slowly stop being afraid. Eurydice arrived like most, bewildered, then calm. She adjusted faster than most. I noticed her.
You did notice me. You were kinder than the stories say. Everyone imagines you as a jailer. You're more of a landlord who never raises his voice because he never has to.
That's the most accurate description of my job anyone has ever given. I'm going to use it. Landlord of Eternity. It tests well.
Don't let him charm you into thinking it's cozy down there, child. I know that realm. My daughter spends half of every year in it and comes back gray. It is not a home. It's a waiting room that never calls your name.
Demeter, we are not doing Persephone today. This is not that episode. Every episode is somehow that episode with you.
Every episode is that episode until you give her back the whole year. I'll bring her up whenever a grieving mother is relevant, and a girl died today, so she's relevant.
May I say, from the inside, it's not as grim as a grieving mother imagines, but it's not as gentle as a landlord claims. It's absence. You remember warmth without feeling it. That's the whole experience, remembering warmth.
And I couldn't bear it. Up above, I sat with my lyre and I couldn't play a single note that wasn't her name. The music stopped mattering. Do you understand what that is? For me, music was the only thing I'd ever been sure of.
So you decided to go and get her, a living man walking into death. That's not grief anymore, Orpheus. Grief sits down. That's something else. That's refusal.
It was refusal. I refuse. I still refuse. I looked at the whole ordered universe, all your rules, and I decided none of them applied to me because I could sing. Arrogant? Yes, but I was right enough to get through the gate, wasn't I?
Now that I respect. A mortal who looks at the natural order and says, not for me. That's practically how I run Olympus. Bend the rules, apologize later, ideally never.
Yes, you two are soulmates. The difference is the boy did it for love of one woman, and you do it for love of many. Do go on and tell him you're the same. I'll wait.
How did you even get down there, boy? You don't just wander into the underworld. There are gates, there's a dog, there's a river with a very particular boatman who does not do favors.
I walked to a cave mouth the priest said breathed cold air, and I climbed down into the dark with nothing but the lyre. When it got so black I couldn't see my own hands, I played. The dark has ears, it turns out. Everything that heard me stepped aside. The river Styx was the first real test. Charon doesn't ferry the living. He told me to turn back. So I played him the sound of every shore he's ever rowed past and never stopped at. And the old man wept and let me on the boat.
Charon still won't talk about it. He's the most unsentimental creature in my employ, and this boy made him cry with a song about missing dry land. I had to give the ferryman a week off. Do you know how hard it is to find temp staff for the Styx?
A boatman with feelings. On my water, technically. See, this is what I mean. Nobody credits the sea's role in these stories, but every tragic journey goes across something wet.
The Styx is not the sea, Poseidon. It's barely a river. Let the boy tell his story without you annexing the waterways.
Then Cerberus, 3 heads, and I'll be honest, I nearly turned back at the dog. But a dog is still a heart with teeth around it. I played him something soft, the kind of thing you'd hum to a frightened animal, and all 3 heads lay down.
He put my guard dog to sleep with a lullaby. My guard dog. The one thing between the dead and the exit. I found out later, and I didn't even know whether to be furious or impressed. I settled on both. I'm still settled on both.
I heard it, you know, down in the fields of the dead, a sound that didn't belong. The other shades stopped their drifting. Someone whispered, "There's music." And I knew, of course I knew, I would know that hand on those strings anywhere. And do you want to know my very first feeling? Not joy, fear. I thought, you fool. What have you done? You're not supposed to be here. He came to save me, and my first thought was that he was in danger.
That's love that has already grown up. Yours was still young and certain, Orpheus. Hers had learned what it costs. She feared for you before she hoped for herself. Remember that. It matters for how this ends.
I didn't feel in danger. I felt unstoppable. I reached the great hall, and there they were, Hades on his throne, and beside him the queen. And I did the only thing I've ever known how to do. I played them my grief.
I remember it precisely. I remember everything. It's an occupational requirement. He stood in my hall, this exhausted living boy, and he sang about a wedding and a snake and a blue sky she said she liked. And my entire kingdom stopped moving. Tantalus stopped reaching for his fruit. Sisyphus sat down on his stone. The Furies, my Furies, who have never wept for anyone, wept. For the first and only time in the history of my reign, the punishments paused because of a song.
The Furies cried, my brother terrifying nightmare crones. I've seen them make titans beg. An immortal with a stringed turtle shell made them cry. Orpheus, I'll be honest, that's a better resume than most of my sons have.
It was the truest he ever played. I've heard him play for kings and for crowds and for me on a hillside, but that day he played for the dead, and the dead do not clap and do not pay and cannot help him. So there was no reason to it but love. That's when he was greatest.
You never told me that. In all of eternity, you never told me that was the best I ever played.
There's a great deal I never got to tell you. We'll come to why.
The queen. You said the queen was moved. Persephone, My daughter was there, sitting on that cold throne she never chose, and she heard this and she wept. Of course she did. She knows what it is to be taken from someone who loves you.
She did weep, and she turned to me and she asked me, didn't order, asked, to let the girl go back. Persephone's mercy is the reason we're all sitting here. So perhaps, Demeter, the cold throne taught her something worth having.
It taught her compassion by breaking her heart first. I'd have preferred she learned it from me in the sunlight with her mother. But I'll grant you this once, she did a good thing there. Only this once.
So you actually said yes, you, Hades, who by everyone's account never gives anything back. You just released her? What did the boy's song do to you exactly? I need to understand the mechanism.
The mechanism, Poseidon, is that I felt something, which I try not to do because it's expensive. He made me remember taking Persephone. He made me the villain of my own love story for the length of one song. And I couldn't sit in that feeling and also say no. So I said yes.
You saw yourself in him, the one who loves so hard he'll break a law of the world to keep her. You've done it. You just did it. Going the other direction. That's why you couldn't refuse. He wasn't asking a god. He was asking a husband.
Yes. All right, yes, Hestia. That's exactly it. And I'd have preferred you say it more gently. Except you did. And I still felt it. That's your whole trick, isn't it?
So the god of the dead grants the impossible. But you never give without a string, Hades. You're the most careful god at this table. What was the condition? Because there's always a condition. I've read enough contracts to know.
One condition. He walks ahead. She follows, and he does not look back, not a glance, until both of them stand in the sunlight above. If he turns before she's fully in the living world, she returns to me. Forever, and without appeal.
One rule, one, and it wasn't even hard. Keep your eyes forward and walk toward the light you already know how to find. He'd navigated the whole underworld by ear. And this last part, all he had to do was not turn around.
You make it sound simple because you were behind me. You didn't have to walk through the dark with no proof. You knew you were there. I didn't. That's the part no one accounts for. I had faith and only faith, step after step.
Oh, I see the whole shape of it now. Hades, you sly god of the pit. You didn't give him his wife back. You gave him a test he was always going to fail. That's not mercy. That's a beautifully wrapped trap.
It was not a trap. It was a condition. There's a difference, and the difference is his choice. I offered a real door. Whether he walked through it was never in my hands. I don't cheat. I never have to.
But you knew, didn't you? You've watched every soul that's ever loved someone. You knew the odds. You gave a grieving, desperate, faith-starved man the one instruction that grief makes impossible to keep. That's not a lie, but it isn't innocent either.
I knew the odds. I did not fix the outcome. Those are different sins, and I'll only cop to the one I committed. I gave him a true chance that most people would fail. He is not most people. I genuinely thought, the musician might be the one who could.
Wait. So you were rooting for him? You wanted him to make it? The gloomy landlord had a favourite.
I don't get to have favourites, but if I did, a man who made my furies weep? Yes. Some quiet part of me walked every step of that tunnel with him, wanting him to keep his eyes forward. I so rarely get to watch someone win against me. I'd have enjoyed it.
That's the part that undoes me, even now. Everyone was on his side. The queen, the king, even the dog. The whole machinery of death held its breath and rooted for us. And we still lost, not because the world was against us, because of one turn of a head.
Tell us the walk, slowly. This is the heart of it, and you've both carried it a long time. Orpheus, you first. What was it like, walking up, not allowed to look?
It was the loudest silence I have ever known. I couldn't hear her footsteps. The dead don't make sound, so there was nothing. Just my own feet and the dark, and this howling doubt. Is she there? Did they trick me? Am I climbing out of hell completely alone? I wanted to say her name and I couldn't, because what if the rule counted words too? So I played, quietly, just to send something backward to her, and I listened for anything, a breath, a rustle, and I got nothing. Nothing. Mile after mile of nothing.
And I was right there, the whole time, close enough to touch the hem of his cloak if the rules had let me. I could see him shaking. I wanted to say, I'm here, stop being afraid, but I couldn't speak either. So we climbed in silence, both terrified, 10 feet apart and completely alone.
Oh, that's the cruelty of it. Two people side by side, each convinced they might be alone. That's not a punishment for the dead. That's a torment designed for the living heart specifically.
So what happened? You see the light? You get close? How close were you? Give me the distance. I need the distance. It changes everything.
I saw it. Grey at first, then pale, then real daylight up ahead through the mouth of the cave, and I felt it on my face. Actual warmth, actual sun, and in that moment, feeling the world come back, my whole body said, she has to be seeing this too. Turn, share it. She's earned it. I stepped into the light, and the joy was so enormous, the relief so total, that I forgot it was a rule and remembered only that I loved her. And I turned to see her face in the sun, and she was still in shadow, one step behind, still in the dark.
One step. I hadn't crossed yet. He was out, and I was one single step from out. And he turned, and I saw his face change from joy to horror in the same instant, and I knew, before I even felt myself falling backward, I knew, it's over. He's just killed me again, with love.
She reached for me, I reached for her, our fingers, I felt them. I felt her fingertips, and then I felt them turn to mist, to cold air, to nothing. She was pulled backward down into the dark, and I couldn't follow, because I was standing in the daylight she never reached.
And the last thing was not anger. I want that on record. As I fell back into the dark, I said one word. I said, farewell. That's all there was time for. Not, how could you? Just, farewell. Because I still loved him, even as he lost me.
Farewell. You forgave him in the falling before you'd even landed. I tend the hearth. I've seen a great many endings, and I have rarely heard of a gentler one from a woman with more right to rage.
I would not have said farewell. I'll be honest, at my own expense. I've been failed by a man I trusted repeatedly, and my instinct is not forgiveness. Eurydice, you're a better woman than your queen. I mean that.
Hera, was that? Did you just compliment someone and insult me in a single breath on my own show while I was being moved by a love story?
I multitask. It's how I've stayed married to you.
But why did you turn, boy? You were out. You were in the sun. You had walked past a dog, a ferryman, a river, the literal king of death, and you fell at the last step. I have to know. Everyone has always had to know.
Because I loved her more than I trusted the promise. That's the whole answer, and it's taken me an eternity to say it plainly. I didn't turn from weakness. I turned because I could not bear one more second of not knowing she was safe. I loved her too much to obey.
And that's where he and I finally disagree. I loved you too much to obey. No, if you'd loved me enough, you'd have walked. You'd have kept your eyes forward for me. The looking back wasn't for me, Orpheus. It was for you.
That's not fair.
Isn't it? You needed to see me. You needed the reassurance. And I understand that need. I do. I've had it. But in that moment, you chose your own comfort over my whole life. You turned to soothe yourself, and it cost me everything.
She's right, for the record. I've thought about this exact turn for centuries. He didn't turn to save her. There was nothing to save her from. She was already following, already safe. He turned to end his own suffering of doubt. And that is the most human thing I have ever witnessed.
Oh, don't be so hard on him, either of you. Doubt in the dark isn't a character flaw. When Persephone was taken, I looked everywhere. I turned over the whole world 100 times because I couldn't bear not knowing. Not knowing is its own kind of torture. He broke under torture.
I think you're both right, which is why it's a tragedy and not a mistake. He loved her truly, and he failed her truly. And both of those are the same act. Love and failure came out of the exact same turn of his head. That's what makes it unbearable. You can't separate them.
Thank you, Hestia, because that's it. If I turned out of cruelty, I could have forgiven myself. It's that I turned out of love and it did the work of cruelty. The same feeling that walked me into hell walked her back down into it.
You know what this needs? A do-over. Hades, why not give the boy another go? He's learned his lesson. Send her back up. He keeps his eyes shut this time. Everyone's happy. I do this all the time. Grant a second wish when the first goes badly.
Because it doesn't work that way, brother. And it shouldn't. The rule had one meaning: trust. A second chance would say trust is optional, that death is negotiable if you sulk long enough. It isn't. My realm only holds because its door opens exactly once.
And I didn't want a do-over, if I'm honest. He came back to the cave mouth and begged for 7 days. Karen wouldn't take him again, and part of me, down in the dark, was relieved. Isn't that terrible? I didn't want to walk that tunnel a second time with my heart in my throat.
You never told me you were relieved.
There's the list again, of things I never told you. I was relieved that I no longer had to hope. Hope is the heaviest thing there is, Orpheus. You handed it to me twice, and both times it nearly broke me. The dark, at least, is quiet.
That's actually darker than the snake somehow. She's saying she'd rather be dead in peace than alive in hope. I did not come here to have my chest cracked open. I came for a water story.
That's because hope is exhausting when it's tied to someone else's follow-through. She's not choosing death over him. She's choosing certainty over being let down. Any woman who's waited on a man who might turn around understands that in her bones.
Is this still about the myth, or?
It's about the myth. It's always about the myth. Keep telling yourself that, dear.
So then what became of you, Orpheus? A man who charmed death and lost anyway. You don't just walk back to your fields and take up farming? What does a person like that even do with the rest of a life?
I stopped singing to people. I sang only to stones and rivers and trees, because they'd listened at the wedding and they never asked anything of me. I wandered Thrace, refusing every woman who came near, faithful to a wife I'd already failed. For years, just me and the lyre and the grief.
You built a small, cold hearth of your grief, and you sat by it alone and let it be your whole home. I know that fire, it gives just enough warmth to survive on, and never enough to live on. Many people choose it. It feels loyal.
It did feel loyal. It felt like the only way left to love her, to refuse everyone else. But you're right, Hestia. It wasn't a home. It was a shrine I locked myself inside. And Thrace has women who do not take kindly to being refused a grieving legend.
The Maenads, the wild women of Dionysus. He turned them all away, and in their frenzy they took it as an insult to their god and their sex both, and they tore him apart on a hillside. I'll spare the details, but that's how he came to me the second time. In pieces.
I didn't run. That's the thing I'll say for myself. When they came down the hill, I laid the lyre in the grass and I waited, because I knew what was on the other side of it. Not oblivion, her. There was only ever one door I still wanted to walk through, and they were opening it for me.
And the head. I heard about the head. They threw his head in the river and it kept singing. Now that's a water story. His head floated down the river, Hebrus still singing her name, and washed all the way to the sea. My sea. See? I told you I was in this.
Even torn apart, I couldn't stop singing her name. The one skill I had outlived my own body. My head floated singing and my lyre floated beside it, and the muses gathered what was left of me and set the lyre in the stars. But I didn't want the stars. I wanted the tunnel to have gone differently.
The lyre's still up there, you know. I had it placed. Lyra, the constellation. That was me, a genuinely good decision, no notes. When the greatest music ever made goes silent, you at least hang the instrument where everyone can see it forever.
And then he came down. And I want to tell this part because nobody ever does. Everyone ends the story at the hillside, at the singing head, at the pretty constellation. But the story isn't over, because he arrived in the dark a second time, and this time, there was no rule. This time, he could look at me all he wanted. And he did. He walked up to me in the fields of asphodel, and he just looked and looked. And neither of us said the clever, wounded things we'd been rehearsing. He just took my hand, and I let him.
I could finally turn around. That's the mercy nobody counts. In death, I can look at her as long as I like, and she never fades. I lost the whole living world, and in exchange, I got the one thing the rule denied me. I get to see her face and know she's staying.
They walk my fields together now. I see them sometimes. He doesn't play for the court anymore. He plays only for her, low in the asphodel. It's the one corner of my realm that isn't grey. I let them keep it. Even a landlord of eternity can leave one light on.
Oh, Hades, that's the softest thing you've ever said at this table. Leave one light on. I'm going to remember that the next time I'm furious at you about my daughter, which will be soon.
Please do forget it by then. I have a reputation of being unmoved to maintain, and you're all watching me fail at it in real time.
So here's what I hear at the end of all of it. He tried to defeat death and failed. Then death gave him the very thing he'd wanted, an eternity of looking at her, but only once he stopped trying to win. He got her back the moment he stopped fighting to get her back.
Yes, that's it, exactly. The turning around killed me, but it was also, in the end, the whole point of him. He is a man who cannot not look at what he loves. And once we were both in the dark together, where nothing more could be lost, that same flaw became the sweetest thing about him.
So have you forgiven me? Truly, I've had an eternity of your hand in mine, and I've never once dared to ask it out loud.
I forgave you in the falling, Orpheus, I told you. Farewell. That was the forgiveness. You've just been too frightened to believe I meant it. I meant it. I only wish you trusted my forgiveness the way you couldn't trust my footsteps.
That's the second time your patience has undone me completely. The first was the tunnel. I'll try to believe you this time. I have the time to practice.
Look at that. He finally learned to trust her when she's told him it's safe. 10,000 years too late, but he got there. Some men do, eventually. I'm noting the date.
Is that aimed at me again?
If the constellation fits, husband.
I'll say something sincere, which I hate doing on the water. I mean on the record. I came here for a shipwreck of a myth, and instead I got two people who lost everything and still ended up holding hands in the dark. That's better than a shipwreck. Barely, but it is.
It's the truest thing you've said all episode, Poseidon. Grief that ends in a held hand instead of a turned back. That's what I want for my Persephone if I ever have to lose her again. Someone who stops running the moment she's found.
She has that, Demeter. She has me. I know you'll never quite believe it, but the girl who wept for a stranger's song did it because she knows she's loved. I taught her that, slowly, in the one corner of my realm that isn't grey.
We'll discuss it another episode, but not today. Today, I'll let you have that just today.
That may be the closest those two have come to peace in 3,000 years. And it took someone else's love story to get them there. That's what these old myths are for. We tell someone else's grief so we can finally feel our own.
Then let ours be useful, at least, if anyone's listening from the world above, when the one you love is behind you in the dark, and you're terrified, and you cannot hear their footsteps. Don't turn. Trust the promise. We are the reason you know to keep walking.
And if you do turn, because you're only human and you will, know that it isn't the end of love. It's just the end of one road out. Sometimes you get the one you lost anyway, just not in the sunlight. Sometimes you have to meet again in the quiet.
Well, I promised you a love story and a trip to my brother's basement, and I delivered a good deal more than that, as I usually do. To Orpheus and Eurydice, the two who proved that even I don't understand love as well as I claim to. and I claim to understand it enormously.
It's not a basement.
Leave him one light on Hades. It's the least the show can do.
That's our episode. Love until death do us part. And then, if you're patient, a little while after. Go tend your own hearths, all of you. Some fires are worth walking into the dark for. Just keep your eyes forward on the way out.